Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu. Pakhair agale. Ni hao. Chunashumme. Washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas. Guten Morgen. Hola. Boyor. Privyet. Kaifa hal. Hale shumachatore. Ahlan wasal. Marhaba. Buna. Mucho. Gracias. Swabia. Bhalli kireaya. Hosh geldin. Anayo Sayo. And thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Hajar, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for introducing me. So I believe, Shahzad, that you have some inspiring quote to share.
Yeah, I do.
So please go ahead.
All right, so just very recently, this is something which I've experienced myself. So I wanted to share it with our audiences out there. Number one, that I had to lie on one occasion. I'm very sorry that I had to do it, but because there was no other way out.
Right.
And the other gentleman who I lied to was my father too as well. So I hope that it's going to stay in between me and you, Abu. I know that you might be watching as of now, but I believe that, it gave me a lot of pressure. So it was a prerequisite for something which I was supposed to do and fulfill my job, which I didn't. And on my father calling me and asking me whether you did it or not, I said I did it. And so there was a certain deadline to it, which I obviously eventually towards the end of the day had a lot of pressure on me. And with that pressure, I was like, yeah, why was even there a need for me to lie in the first place? Because of that lie, I actually was under whatever circumstances I had to go through, unfortunately. So yeah, please make sure that you don't lie. Number one. Number two, please make sure that you surround yourself with friends who enable you. And I've always kind of spoken about it, that whenever you call a friend, your friends shouldn't be like, oh, you know what, it's going to be difficult for me. They should be like, no problem. Hey, you know what, I need this, no problem. So these are the kind of people you really need to surround yourself with. And number three is the most important, and that is that, you really need to make up your mind early in the morning when you wake up, that today I'm going to do more of positives rather than the negatives. And you will see that, inshallah, it will have a very positive impact on your life. So please make sure that you keep that in your mind. What about you? What do you have to share?
Lovely. That's a lovely advice. And I can't speak or lie in front of my father because he's very sharp in picking up from the body language that
Even my father asked me like twice or thrice, oh, you did it already? I was like, yeah, I did it.
So it takes a lot of energy, to fool him, which we can't because he's very sharp and intelligent, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
So I wanted to talk about how the United Nations General Assembly session is going on.
Sure.
And there is a call from the vulnerable countries, from the least developed countries, about the loss and damage, which is a call for the reparation to the vulnerable countries because they didn't participate in the industrialization, which has produced climate change.
Exactly.
So a lot of people are pressurizing the world leaders there that they need to walk the talk on the loss and damage. And people from the African countries, they're actually protesting against it because the world leaders have gathered at the assembly there.
True.
So Denmark has actually taken this initiative of contributing towards the loss and damage. It has contributed 12 million euros. It is a very minimal amount considering the fact that Pakistan suffered 30 billion of the damages, dollar damages. But yet again, I think its symbolism is great and it will incentivize other countries to walk on talk on this issue of the loss and damage.
Exactly. And you know what, from here onwards, Haja, will certainly, all of these developed countries or the countries who've been contributing towards climate change will certainly need to sit down and focus on whether they want to continue with all of those emissions, or on the other hand start to pay off all of those countries which have been very vulnerable to the climate change. So we really need to talk about it.
And that is why we do not label it as a aid, we label it as a reparation, because aid has certain sort of a negative connotation when it comes to that, and reparation means, so that like General Secretary of the Antonio Guterres talked about, it is not about the generosity, it is about climate justice in the first place.
Exactly.
Right? So we need to keep a narrative, the wording straight, because it is a first step in developing the walk the talk around this climate change narrative.
Because at the same time we might not be even going through all of this destruction, massive destruction all over the country, if it wasn't for the countries who've been emitting all of those carbon emissions out there and contributing towards climate change. So the narrative really needs to be put up straight that it's not really the aid. What's the exact jargon that we are actually using? Reparations. So,
Loss and damage reparations.
Exactly. So the world really needs to come together, and whether the world is coming together or not is something which we will be talking about in the next segment. But first things first, we really need to see what's happening with the country, what our Prime Minister is up to, and from there onwards we'll see what's happening all over the world. So let's take a look. So what do we have first up, Hajra?
So, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif spent another busy day in New York, where he is present to attend the 77th session of United Nations General Assembly session. And he's there. He obviously will talk about the climate change because it is one of the focal talking point about that. And last night I was listening to President Biden's speech, in which he once again reiterated that we need to help countries like Pakistan, which are suffering from the climate-induced disaster like the flooding, because it is very much important that we walk the talk again on it.
And we will certainly be sharing that news too as well. But right now, we actually have a package on what our Prime Minister, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Mian Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif Saab, is up to. Let's go. Let's take a look.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif spent another busy day in New York, where he is present to attend the 77th session of United Nations General Assembly. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken met Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif at the UN General Assembly in New York. Antony Blinken expressed sympathy for the flood victims. He also assured Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of US commitment to stand with Pakistan at this difficult time. Managing Director of International Monetary Fund Kristalina Georgieva also called on Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif in New York. Kristalina Georgieva described her meeting with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif as very constructive. She also expressed deep sympathy for the devastation caused by floods in Pakistan. Kristalina Georgieva said that IMF will continue to support Pakistan under the current program to help ease the pain of Pakistani people. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif held a meeting with World Bank President David Malpass on the sidelines of the 77th UN General Assembly session in New York. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif appreciated the World Bank's partnership with Pakistan and informed David Malpass about the government's steps to introduce economic policies focused on strengthening the economy. He also elucidated the government's pressing requirements for additional investment and financial resources from global community to mitigate the devastating impact of climate change on the people and economy of Pakistan. World Bank President David Malpass stressed that Pakistan must be prioritized for resilient reconstruction through the international community's collective support. He also committed to the repurposing of $850 million immediately to help Pakistan with its flood relief efforts. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif also held a meeting with the President of United Nations General Assembly, Saba Korosi, in New York. Highlighting the multiple challenges confronting the world today, the Prime Minister hoped for concrete responses by the Assembly under his leadership. Drawing attention to the unprecedented rains that had triggered the worst natural disaster in Pakistan's history, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif stressed that the support of the international community is crucial to help the country respond effectively to this climate catastrophe. Raza Khan, PTV World.
And certainly over here, the entire nation actually stands behind our Prime Minister and his team for their untiring efforts in making sure that they're going to take or bring Pakistan out of such a catastrophe as well. But from the Prime Minister of Pakistan to the President of the United States of America, where Mr. Biden, ladies and gentlemen, the US President Joe Biden made a fervent call for extending help to Pakistan, where floods have caused huge devastation. In his speech to the United Nations General Assembly, the President told the 193-member Assembly in its high-level debate when he dealt with the adverse impacts of climate change that Pakistan is still underwater and needs help. Thank you, President Biden.
Okay, definitely, like we were talking about how there is a need to walk the talk around the climate change, and then moving on to another top story, which is about the Angelina Jolie, because she is one of the focal person of the United Nations Commission for the Refugees and Hollywood actress. Also, she was at the National Flood Response and Coordination Center in Islamabad. Deputy Chairman NFRCC Ehsan Iqbal welcomed her and thanked her for visiting Pakistan during the most devastated floods in the history of Pakistan. She was briefed about the flood response and measures taken thus far. Ms. Jolie said she is deeply moved to see people suffering during her visit to Dadu in Sindh province, where she met flood victims. She said that she is with flood-affected people and will make her efforts to let the world know the scale of devastation these climate-induced changes have done and the life-saving support they need. And like we were talking about the climate change, and of course, I failed to mention that Germany has also established the Global Shield, which is led by the G7 countries, and they didn't have contributed much to it, but a lot of people are saying that it can loosely turn into the loss and damage, and Global North should contribute to it when it comes to the reparations towards the vulnerable countries.
And in addition to that, obviously, you know, since we had the German ambassador over here
Right.
on the show too as well, so he mentioned, and you know, I'm glad that we actually got to know that, you know, Germany has actually set up a fund where we certainly do not need to ask for it. You know, God forbid if there's any calamity, they already released it and they made sure that, you know, that the work on the ground is going to begin or will be initiated.
True.
All of those initiatives will be taken, which are important for all of those flood affected areas as well. But now coming down to where our Federal Minister for Climate Change was at the UNGA too as well. So let's see what she actually has to say. Federal Minister for Climate Change Sherry Rahman says Pakistan is on front line of climate crisis. She was addressing a ceremony hosted by Britain and Rwanda on the occasion of the 77th session of UN General Assembly session. She said the floods triggered by unprecedented rains have caused massive destruction in Pakistan, leaving more than 1,500 people dead. The minister stressed that Pakistan contributes less than 1% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, but yet it is being the brunt of the climate crisis. She urged that world to come forward and take concrete steps in this regard, which I believe is really very important as of now, given the situation Pakistan is, where we do see that, you know, more than 33 million people have been affected and displaced. More than 180 bridges have been destructed, or not even destructed but damaged, you know, and it is a total catastrophe, and the world really needs to come together and make sure that Pakistan certainly do not have to go through all of that what we are going through so far, because in coming days we never know, you know, how the winters is going to be, we never know how the summers are going to be. And we had, you know, a lot of weathers over here in Pakistan where now certainly we never experienced spring all of a sudden.
True.
And you know, so you know, when we see such a change in climate, what really happens is that, you know, imagine we really need to think about all of those farmers who were actually set up with the same pattern. The patterns change obviously, and you know, in coming days we will see that, God forbid, you know, for all of those crops which was supposed to come out and yield us some benefits are not going to be there for us, you know. So it's a total loss. It's a situation which we really need the international or global community to come together to help us, you know, and we're not asking for aid, we're actually asking for
reparations. So I wanted to share some statistics from the World Health Organization about the public health, and the report mentioned that the year between 2030 to 2050 we are going to have 250,000 deaths per year, and that is due to the medical related conditions due to the climate calamities. So we will talk more about it, but before that I really wanted to introduce my guest, because he's going to talk about the skin issues especially prevalent in the flood affected areas. So I am really glad that I have been joined by the Dr. Sahab, Dr. Mubashir Daha, who is a dermatologist. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum salam ji.
So it's wonderful to have you over here. Thank you very much once again for taking our time from your busy schedule. It's an honor to have you. So let's get started. So obviously, you know, we do see that there's an increase in waterborne diseases. We are seeing dengue, we're seeing multiple other issues which people are going through, gastroenterology. Obviously, when we talk about gastro issues, you know, there were people who actually died of gastro issues as well within the flood affected areas. And then, you know, a lot of people now have been complaining about quite a lot of itching, you know. So is it because of those, you know, the conditions they are in as of now, because the water's been there, you know, it's not clean water, it's all dirty. So what do we do, and what are the solutions? How do you think that people over there can actually prevent?
Thank you very much. First of all, as you have told the audience that the things are very disastrous there in flood affected areas. And if you talk about the diseases, there are different diseases which are being seen there in flood affected areas like dengue, gastro, and even skin related issues. If you talk about the skin related issues are not that much damaging, or I can say that those are not life threatening.
Okay.
There is a disease that we may call it scabies.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you talk about the itching in the flood affected areas, the people who are there are being suffered by scabies. And scabies is also contagious disease, and that is also because if one person in the family gets this disease, then the other also affected by it.
Yeah.
So we need to treat that, and there are also the issues of eczema and other urticaria and The other waterborne diseases may include dengue and malaria and gastro, and they are all of them are life-threatening, and they cause the people to die. But if we talk about the skin issues, people are also suffering from acne because of the surrounding environment and
acne
humidity.
scars.
Acne scars. Acne scars is the post complication of the acne. But if we focus only on the flood affected areas, I think that there are two diseases are scabies and acne.
Scabies and acne. So let's get started with scabies, because you said that, you know, this is anybody can get it. You know, if there's another family member sitting right next to me, God forbid, if I have scabies, they can get it too as well. You know, they say that it's contagious. So let's talk about it. First of all, do you think that the cause is that dirty water, which is obviously around them every single day?
It's not about the dirty water, but because the people who are living in the flood affected areas, they are living together. They are living in congested places. That is the reason that scabies is being spread over there.
All right.
So dirty water may play some role, but the main reason is because they are living in a very congested areas, very congested houses, and their interaction is very close, and they come in contact with each other on very often. So scabies is being spread.
But this is something which is unavoidable, you know, because everybody's living in tents these days. You know, shelters are being provided, so it's difficult for them to isolate themselves. So how do you think for all of those people who have to live in such conditions, they can protect themselves or prevent? And then for people who are actually suffering from scabies, what are the treatments available? And once you say the answer, I would want to say it in Urdu too as well, so the reach is massive and everybody can understand that this is how they can help themselves. Please.
थैंक यू वेरी मच शहजाद साहब. अच्छा, इसमें से जिस तरह आपने बताया है, इसका जो सबसे अच्छी ऑप्शन है वो ये है कि स्केबीज इज ट्रीटेबल.
ओके.
ट्रीट किया जा सकता है उसको. उसमें हम करते क्या हैं, बीइंग डर्माटोलॉजिस्ट या जो भी डॉक्टर वहाँ पे जा रहे हैं, इवन कि हमारी भी टीम्स जा रही हैं वहाँ पे फ्लड अफेक्टेड एरियाज में कैंप लगाने के लिए, तो वो ये करते हैं कि जब हम ट्रीटमेंट दे रहे होते हैं तो जो साथ वाला अफेक्टेड नहीं भी है उसको भी हम ट्रीट करते हैं.
ओके.
मतलब एक स्केबीज अगर किसी को हो गया हो तो इट टेक्स अ टाइम, मतलब अ वीक और सो, कि जब उसमें स्केबीज की सिम्टम डेवलप होना शुरू होती हैं. इफ सपोज आई एम सफरिंग फ्रॉम स्केबीज इन माय फैमिली, I have itching and I have the symptoms, but along with me who is sitting who is living with me, he or she will not have till the time कि उनको एक certain time period ना गुजर.
But you will still be treating them.
Yeah, this is how we treat the people. We don't only treat the that specific person, we treat the whole family.
All right.
So जो इसकी contagious वो है, इसकी फर्दर ट्रांसमिशन है, इसकी जो फर्दर स्प्रेड है उसको हम रोक सकें.
All right, wonderful. Do you want to translate it?
Yeah, right. So Dr. Saab said that people who are suffering from the scabies, we also treat those who are living with them, but they do not exhibit the very explicit symptoms about it because it is going to transmit to them. So it's very important that we need to be careful about the transmission of that, because as Shahzad mentioned, it is very contagious when it comes to that. So Dr. Saab, what can we do in especially the areas which are resource deprived, for example in the interior of the Sindh or in the south of Punjab, that do not have that much resources, or the infrastructure is badly damaged there? How can people within the very limited resources make sure that they are protected from such kind of illnesses?
We can say that to take care of their hygienic conditions, because they are not resourceful enough कि वहाँ they are not have such facilities as we have here in Islamabad and Lahore and Karachi, etc. But what we recommend them, being dermatologists, that they should take care of their hygienic conditions so that the diseases like that may not spread ahead.
Right. But then again, I do remember my team and I visited the DI Khan, and we saw that the water was really, poisonous and damaged there, because it was a flood water and people were having drinking or using the same water as the animals were using at that time. So what can we do to make sure that, is there any cost effective solution to make sure that that we can do something for there so that they can turn that water into more drinkable water or clean water?
This is very simple, that we may use the warm water, because as we have seen
that boil the water. That's what you're suggesting. Yes.
So that is very simple and very economical, and if we are focused on our health, and if we aware the people who are living in those areas, they may do it, and they may make it sure that their health may not be damaged with such type of things. And especially the water is affecting the people, especially in the diarrhea and gastroenteritis and
Cholera,
their
probably.
stomach issues.
Yep.
And these issues are also life-threatening because they need urgent support, medical support, and
Right.
urgent first aid. And if they are not provided, they may go to in serious condition.
And I've gone through one of these conditions myself, and let me tell you honestly, so I was not able to sleep the entire night. The pain was so much that I actually wanted to rush to the hospital, there and then. But alhamdulillah, so my father gave me a medicine, self-medication. It helped me, but it is really very painful. God forbid if somebody gets that, they really need to rush to the hospital. But sir, taking you back to scabies, where over here in Pakistan, when we talk about such a massive destruction, obviously people try to medicate themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, for example, when we talk about itching on the skin, my father would tell me, probably, or anybody's parents is going to tell them, take warm luke water, put some Dettol in it, and just take a bath. For all of that self-medication, do you think that the condition can get worse, or do you think that it is a better solution, or anti-allergies, we use them by ourselves? We do not certainly need a doctor to recommend that to us. This is something which we have tried and tested over a period of life. Do you think that such self-medication practices can actually damage you more?
Yeah, I can't say because skin conditions are not that much serious that it may, these are not the life-threatening.
But obviously, God forbid if they go untreated, you can have those scars for the rest of your life. There can be issues, and you itching all day, every day.
Yeah.
You can scratch yourself too.
Right.
Yeah, what I want to tell you is that if you don't treat the disease, whatever it is scabies, acne, or whatever it is, so what happens, it will not settle down.
Okay.
But the thing you are telling us that if we go for some warm luke water, for some antihistamine or thing like that, it is symptomatic treatment.
Okay.
If someone is itching and he or she takes antihistamine, and the itching will settle down. But it will settle down for a certain period of time.
Okay.
It may be 8 hours, it may be 10 hours, it may be 1 day.
So it's not a complete solution.
It's not the complete solution. It will start again. And if until and unless we go for the complete solution, if we talk about the scabies, if we don't treat the scabies and we keep on taking the antihistamine will settle the allergy and settle the itching for a certain period of time.
All right.
And after that, it will start again.
All right.
And what we need to do, we should take the antihistamine. Along with that, we should treat the scabies.
All right.
So that the causative issue, the causative factor of that disease may also be addressed. And along with that, we should also treat the patient symptomatically.
So
as
we
you
need
have
to
told.
address the root cause, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're suggesting. And it's wonderful. Thank you very much for saying that. But since we do know that obviously there's a dearth of, medical camps and doctors out there in the flood affected areas, so what is that best solution? Because, my skin will behave very differently from your skin and react to the medication I get. So obviously not one treatment will go for everybody, but what are you going to suggest? What is the treatment? Very sorry. So, share it with our audiences so that if there are people out there on the ground, they know that, okay, this is the kind of treatment which we can opt for. Please go ahead. Help other people.
Thank you very much. As Shehzad Sahab has told everyone that we need to treat the disease, whatever it is. And the main disease people there in flood affected areas are suffering is scabies. And for scabies, first we need to treat them symptomatically. Their itching need to be settled down, and we give them antihistamine. Along with that, we need to give them some proper solution. Those are available in the lotion form, and those are permethrin lotions. And we give them some soaps to settle their allergy and settle their itching.
Right.
So as Mr. Shiraz has also told you before, that don't treat only symptoms, also treat the root cause, so that the things may settle down. And above all, that the flood affected areas are suffering more the things like gastro and fever and dengue and things like that. And if we talk about only about the skin main disease there in flood affected areas is scabies. And further, if you go for the sunburn, if you go for the acne, if you go for the acne scars, these are not the issues that we should focus on, because as ma'am has also told that the people are not resourceful there. We don't have such resources that we should also focus on such things. First, we need to focus on the things which are life-threatening, and along with that, which are very disturbing. Scabies is very disturbing.
True.
That if scabies, someone gets it, he or she needs to keep on itching whole the day, whole the night. So we need to address it. And further, if we go for the other skin condition, those are if we don't treat them, even then those are not very much disturbing. until unless we are very much focused on the cosmetics and our personality and surety.
Right. So, Dr. Saab, you were mentioning about a particular type of the soaps which can be helpful in the scabies. So, would you like to mention what sort of the soap, especially for the people who want to give the medical aid there or volunteer there in terms of that?
There are different soaps available in the market. We may call them that they are those soaps not only settle the these are not the treatment options.
Yeah.
They
will
address
help
the
you.
scabies symptomatically.
Okay.
They soothe the skin so
Okay.
that itching may not disturb at that level.
Okay.
So
Pears?
there are some, sorry?
Peers, I believe.
Pears is good enough for good skin, but not for that much focus on scabies. If we talk about the scabies, Zaden Bar is good.
Okay.
Good enough. And if Zaden Bar good soap and anti-scabies soap, anti-scabies lotion, anti-scabies
Okay.
anti-scabies face wash, and things like that are available in the market.
Exactly, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you, and for all of those people who are out there and who are planning to actually visit all of these flood affected areas. And if you watch the show, please make sure that you take all of these soaps and creams with you, so that, God forbid, if there are people in need, because it is really very painful. Imagine you scratching or itching yourself all throughout the day and the night, and you cannot sleep. Please make sure that you take these products with you and give them to the needy. You will certainly get the benefit of it over here in your life and the life hereafter. That's what we believe. At this moment, we're actually heading out towards a short break. When we come back, we will actually have some social activists over here on the show who not just are social activists, but rather are making sure that they're going to go onto the places where people are displaced and help them with whatever they can do for them and for the well-being of all of those people. We're heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere, because when you come back, that's the course of our conversation. Good morning.
welcome back. And before going on to the break, we were talking about the medical activism and how we can make sure that the medical aid reaches the people who are affected by the flood-affected victims. And I really wanted to talk about some statistics about how WHO has presented a report in which it said that the least developing countries or the developing countries are at more risk of the 250,000 per year additional deaths because of the climate-induced activities like malnourishment, like climate-induced heat waves, like malaria, like diarrhea and stuff like that, right? So these all glaring statistics presents us with a very grim picture, and we should walk the talk on the climate change, because if we are not going to do it, then I think we are suffering already and our next generations are going to suffer when it comes to that. But there are also people here in the world, in the globe, in Pakistan, who have infused the activism with the medical aid, with the medical help, to make sure that the people who are suffering, they are secure medically when it comes to that. So we do have one such guest in our studio, and I believe that Shahzad wanted to introduce her.
Exactly. So why not? So ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about doctors, obviously they have been the frontline warriors, and we saw it during the COVID. But imagine even now. And finally, I think that, they now realize that how expensive any medical treatment is, because they have been helping a lot of other people on, when we talk about all of those people who've been displaced, providing them with medical supplies, getting aids. So this entire process of activism, we certainly want to get our heads into it, and, for people who are out there, so that even they can contribute generously as well. So without any further ado, we're very lucky that we've been joined with somebody who happens to be Dr. Barira. She happens to be a dentist and a social activist, and she's working for an organization which is made by doctors, and they are helping other people, who have been affected by the flood. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for
Thank you
having
very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. And it's a
Lovely.
wonderful initiative that you doctors came together and made sure that you're going to help other people. Now finally you know how expensive medical treatments are. So, so you might in coming days think about, reducing the cost of whatever treatments you've been receiving. But yes, so it's a great initiative that you guys have taken, and we'll
Yeah,
certainly...
it's not just the procedures, you're right. I mean, what basically we started with was sending simple medical supplies.
Yeah.
For really normal ailments like stomach
Fever,
ailments, fever, simple infections. And the amount of those medicines just added up on itself, and we got a huge deferred pharmacy bill that took us quite a while to pay off. So just the
I mean, even if it
medicines
took
were
doctors
that
quite a lot to
expensive.
pay off, yeah, come on, don't say that.
Right.
Especially when you're in conversation with a dentist. How can you say that? That's
Right.
not something which us or probably our viewers are expecting. But it's great. Let's talk about, how all of those doctors got together. What was the entire process? How did you guys do it? And what have you done so far? Let's talk about that.
Well, so far what we've done is that we've organized as many doctors as we know that from their own backgrounds they belong to underprivileged, like their villages back home are underprivileged.
All
They
right.
may have developed, settled in metropolitan areas, gotten education, but their family can be still back home, or extended family is back home. So everyone got together, and we basically mapped out a really chaotic plan in the beginning, but alhamdulillah over time it got
Sorted it
better.
out, yeah.
And it was like first aid. We had to distribute first aid as soon as possible, and then complicated infections began to arise. Waterborne diseases like typhoid and malaria,
Malaria,
and then
dengue, cholera.
Yeah, dengue, yes, exactly. So then we had to accumulate supplies for these complicated infections and send them as well, along with the other aid, obviously, that goes food and water, clean drinking water, and clothes and other supplies.
Okay, so Dr. Saiba, I've been researching about this program, and I came to know that especially in the Western countries, because the research and the development is really at advanced stage at there. So climate change induced disasters this parlance is getting into the medical discourse about it. So world is going to suffer from the diseases that are induced by the climate change. For example, malnutrition, for example, the the waterborne diseases like that, and the cholera, malaria, etc., etc. How is Pakistan faring in this regard when it comes to the climate change and infusing it with the medical practices?
At this point, it's one step forward, two steps backwards, to be honest with you. We are working on vaccinations for new infections. Unfortunately, the old infections, they keep arising because of climate change-induced disasters like flood and the accumulation of dirty water. And then when animals die and that is infused into said water, so then we have a whole outbreak of new like the
Diseases.
same old diseases in new variants and new forms. So
Right.
it becomes difficult to manage.
Right.
We live in a post-COVID world, supposedly post because it's supposed to be dying down by now.
Right.
But still, we haven't fought off all the old infections. There's still a lot more that needs to be done.
And exactly, thank you very much for saying that, we are living in a post-COVID world, because, the other day President Biden even mentioned that, that the COVID is ended, and we certainly need to come out of that. And it's great to see that, such young, inspiring people like you are coming together and helping people on the ground, which I believe is beautiful. And you certainly will be rewarded by Allah Almighty, and nobody else can reward or pay you back. But now what I wanted to ask was that, for such an initiative and for such a campaign, it's really very important to actually know whether what's the reality, to have a ground check probably, to make sure that what people require. Because most of the time we have seen, when you help people, whatever you're helping them with is something which they might not even require. So, on the contrary, they have to come back, return it, and then get stuff whatever they require. So how do you keep a check on that this is the requirement which we have received, and that's how we're going to fulfill it?
Yes, you just mentioned the bane of my existence.
Thank you.
This is the problem that we've had throughout this campaign. There's a time delay.
Yeah.
Our teams on the ground, they report to us that we need no more food, now we need clothes. And that's a delay, and it takes a while for it to get back to us.
Okay.
And it can be a little chaotic in the middle, because of the population disparity, right? Rajanpur is a lot more populated than, say, Dadu. So if, for example, the people in Rajanpur do not need food anymore, and they tell us that, okay, we don't need food, we need clothes, the trucks are usually already on the way to Rajanpur, so it gets it's a little complicated
Confusing,
to divert them. But yes, we're working on it. Social media has been a big
So
help.
what's the sample size? Because, for example, if one family is going to tell you that we might need clothes, the other family might need something else. So how are we making sure that we're going to fulfill all of those requirements which the people of that specific area has?
Well, it's broken down into what we can do first. Like I said, first we send first aid, then comes the food and the clothes shipments, and then complicated medicines for complicated infections, right?
Right.
And then the rehabilitation process is there as well, in which we have to give them at least enough money to either go back, or materials or something to go back. Thankfully, we've had a lot of help. We're not the only ones doing it. There are a lot of organizations that are doing this on the ground, a lot of independent NGOs. People are doing it just by themselves, are volunteering, and that's the one thing that has been pushing us forward, is that people have actually come together, and that's inspiring.
Wonderful, wonderful. I do feel that in the times of the crisis, the real spirit of Pakistanis can be witnessed, because everyone wants to volunteer, everyone wants to help out in whatever capacity they can, and that is really wonderful.
And Haja, over here, I would want to add on, because, imagine that when we talk about the philanthropic index, Pakistan is obviously ranked amongst the top countries as well. But I believe us being Muslims give us this spirit of helping other people, because we know that the reward is going to be greater in the life hereafter.
That's wonderful. And also, I wanted to point to the fact that UNICEF released a report in which it said that 16 million kids or children will be suffering from the malnutrition or climate-induced diseases in Pakistan, which is a very stark reminder of what we are going through, right? So how do you think can we help out those in need, especially in the flood-affected areas? What sort of help, medical help, or when it comes to the nutrition, we can add to their existing stock in there?
We need a complex rehabilitation plan for these people. They can't stay IDPs forever. We have to send them back, and we have to re-establish them where they are, and we can't do that unless this water crisis is averted, unless it's contained in some manner.
Right.
Otherwise, coming season, heaven forbid this happens again, it's going to be a repetition of the same story.
Right.
And you can't keep people well fed if they don't have a roof over their heads, if they don't have a place to stay. We can only send them aid for so long. There has to be a long-term solution for this. And there are, again, the government has been involved, and there are many, many organizations that are working in rehabilitation of these people so that they can go back. I just wish that the local body governments of especially far-flung areas of Sindh, etc., if they could just put in a little more effort when it comes to rehabilitation, because I think the provincial governments know best about who goes where and which placements, and how to avert the water flooding in that area.
So have you tried connecting with the local governments?
Yes, definitely. We
And
have
how was the
tried.
response you
The
got?
response has been good, alhamdulillah. It's been very supportive. Yes, we've had some
Ups and downs.
yes, we've butt heads a few times. Political disagreements always arise, but I think it's important to remember that everybody got together and said, okay, we'll put our political differences aside and we'll work to help avert this.
So, Dr. Pereira, you raise a very important point about, you know, how much aid will go there, because there comes a time when the news cycle moves on and the aid fatigue sets in, and people are no more interested in sending the aid in those places where people are badly affected by the flood affected areas, right?
And
So,
thank you very much for mentioning that. But in addition to that, you know, I would certainly want to appreciate the kind of precedence is set by the federal government, because Alhamdulillah, our Prime Minister Mia Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif Saab, you know, right from the very beginning said that, you know, that it is above and beyond the internal politics. Everybody needs to come together, and we have seen that how people have been gelling in and the governments have been gelling in, maybe the provincial or the federal. But there's one more thing which hurts me the most, and that is that whenever we talk about such a catastrophe or a disaster, what happens is that we certainly looking at the very basics, you know, or whatever any individual can help them with, all of those people who are suffering from that. But what happens is that within such circumstances, we tend to forget what about people who've already been living with some lifelong ailments. You know, so imagine that they're not getting that particular treatment, God forbid, you know, everybody's at risk of losing their life. So, you know, you being a group of doctors, do you think that, you know, there can be such initiatives where we actually have a camp for the people who have been living with such ailments, you know, for past 10 years or 15 years, and their life can be at risk because as of now, there's no treatment available?
Exactly. Your statement gave me flashbacks of the COVID time. During the pandemic, everyone was obsessing over COVID-19 and how to cure it, vaccinations and all that. In a way, we kind of forgot that there are people with heart diseases,
Cancers,
people suffering from
so
liver
many
failure, people who need transplants, and they weren't getting the attention that they need. And this is an issue like, if there's a new upset, if there's a new crisis, a calamity, we can use it as an opportunity to shed some light on the issues that already existed, create some awareness instead of putting all our attention to one thing. So we have basically awareness programs for just about every disease. There's World Liver Day, World Cancer Day, October Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Multiple days are made just so we
World
can always...
Peace Day, Alzheimer's Day, you know, so there's so many days.
Exactly, just recently we had World Alzheimer's Day.
True.
So these are the things that we need to put into focus, and as a doctors community, what we can do is that we organize marches, we attend speeches, we give hand out as many precaution
No, that's
pamphlets
wonderful.
as we
But you know,
can.
since you're a group of people helping all of those people who've been displaced during the floods, you know, why can't you set up a medical camp? It's just a suggestion. It's not that I'm implying it onto you. That you doctors gather up and make sure that, you know, you make an announcement via the local government, you know, making sure that they are partners in it, and get all of those people on board who, God forbid, have been living with such an ailment, and
So
start
far
their
we've
treatments.
organized up to 12 camps in
Mashallah.
such areas,
Wow.
far-flung areas, including Rajanpur, Dadu district, and Charsada, Noshera. So this is, I myself personally have not been to these areas in this situation, in this flood, but
There have been other doctors.
there have been doctors who I've sent supplies to in these areas, and they've done a terrific job, an outstanding job, and this is all possible because we all came
Right,
together.
Mashallah.
right. So, Dr. Pereira, we have witnessed the diseases because of the climate-induced disasters, right? What can medical practitioners do about such sort of diseases, and how concerned should we be about future sort of diseases like these?
Well, as medical practitioners, we're always concerned, I tell you.
Right.
If the hospitals begin to fill up, it's not a good sign.
True.
What the ordinary people, I can say, what you guys can do is that you please take care of sanitation. Make sure the environment that you live in is clean. I know that's it's very easy to say, but it can be difficult to conduct
Implement,
at times.
right.
Yeah. And because of the crisis that we're going through, there's a place that's completely ravaged by climate change. So it's going to take some time, right? But eventually we'll get there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you know, so you are obviously collecting donations, and alhamdulillah, you've collected quite a lot so far. You know, that's something which I was discussing with her during the break. So how can people contribute, you know, towards this amazing, generous act of all of those doctors who have actually come together? Please go ahead, you know, talk about it, share it with our audiences, so if they feel like contributing, so that they can contribute too as well. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Please do donate to our fund. You can go on Facebook and Instagram at my handle, drbarirabukhari.com. And anything, absolutely anything that you can donate would help us. Please don't think that, oh, this is too little, or this much might not be enough, or it might not mean anything. Every little penny counts, every little cent helps. Even if you're donating just 10 rupees, it doesn't matter. A drop meets with a drop and it makes an ocean. So one by one, it'll all come together and it will help. Don't ever think that your help is not enough. It's needed. Everyone, please donate as much as you can.
Thank you
so
very much, Dr. Barira, for being with us, and keep up the good work, you know,
Thank you.
and we certainly are going to pray for you and that you achieve whatever you feel like, alhamdulillah, in
Alhamdulillah.
life, and that you help a million other people all over the globe. Wherever there is help needed, make sure Allah Pak gives you the opportunity to kind of go and help them. And very quickly, where Dr. Barira said that, you know, even if it's a cent, you know, okay, let's forget even about the cent, you know, they can be non-monetary help too as well. You start praying to Allah Almighty, you give your clothes, you make sure you go spend time with them, you educate their children. You know, there's so many other things which you can do. Please make sure that you keep on doing that. That's it. You know, it will have a greater impact, and yes, focus on doing more positives.
That's wonderful, and I do think that we can help out in whatever capacity we can, because this is what the spirit dictates, and it is what the spirit matters, because it is obviously coming on, and inshallah we will overcome this calamity when it comes to that. So with that, we will bid you a farewell, and until next time, it's a goodbye and good morning.
Allah Hafiz.